welcome back to another Out of Touch with John, Dustin, and Mitchell. And again, I know some of you are probably wondering, why is Mitchell not doing his intro punishment? Well, you know what? You'll find out why in just a couple of seconds. He wasn't with us last week. The birth of his daughter took place, and we're kind of going to dive into that here just to kick off the show here in just a second. But yeah, welcome into another episode of the podcast. I'm looking pretty bushy today. I need to trim up this facial hair I've got going on. But yeah, welcome in. Mitchell, how's it going? How's everything going?
We're floating. First couple nights were hard. We were in the hospital a little longer than we were expecting to be. But once we got home, a little different environment. She was sleeping great in the hospital. Mom just had a couple little issues, but got solved. We're all good. But then we got home. Baby didn't like it near as much.
Oh.
The first night was not ideal. But she's just gotten better and better and better. And we're finally starting to get a little more sleep. I think last night we got a couple hours, which is good. Which is why I'm not doing the intro punishment, because my head is spinning. And I can't even imagine. My wife is like, you think this is going to sound worse than I mean it, but I've been trying to think of the way to say this. Like, you think you really, like, you love someone and, like, you pick the right one when you get married to them, and then you watch her do something like that. I would do a lot of things to protect her. I would get a life sentence if it meant that she was safe. Like, watching her just grow into mom has been one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And it's so, you don't really appreciate it, and there's no way to, I feel like every dad says that, but you really don't get an understanding of what it really means until you see it firsthand. And it's just been so cool to watch her just take it on. And because I mean, she's doing all the feeding. I can't do that. I don't produce the things necessary. So every 2 to 3 hours, she's up doing what she has to do. And it's amazing. It's really, really amazing.
Dustin, welcome into the podcast. Sorry, I know I was going to go to you first, but I knew Mitchell wasn't on at all last week. And I didn't want him to have to just kind of sit there and be like itching or whatever. But
yeah, no.
Have you been getting enough sleep, Dustin? How about you?
Dustin? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting plenty of sleep, but that's not, I shouldn't be rubbing it in at the moment.
Mine's coming.
I've always heard, I have no experience with this, obviously, but I've always heard one of the weirdest things about when you have a child is like going home from the hospital, as in you're on your own at that point. Like, you're just going to let us leave with this child. And we, as first-time parents, I'm sure, like, you're confident in what you're doing, but also you have no idea what you're doing because it's the first time you've done it.
So we were really lucky. I was, because I didn't have to deal with the IVs and people coming to check on me and take my blood pressure. I was just sleeping on the couch. But when we look back in 5 years, we'll see those extra 3 days we were there as a blessing, because we got to see how the nurses swaddle her, how they calm her down, how they burp her, how they do all the things that you don't even think about. We were supposed to be there 48 hours, and then they just literally kick you out. Like, get out of here. Good luck.
And one thing I've always heard too is, I mean, I'm sure it's fairly common, is that whenever it's your time to get out, like, they make sure, like they kind of push you out because they need to get someone else into that room and that kind of thing. It's just next man up for them.
Yeah, especially we were at Community North Hospital, which has the most babies in the city by far. But it's an operation. It's a machine. They have the nurses are just unbelievable, but they're about the business. They know exactly what they need to do. They know what they need to teach you. And once you're ready to go, they give you a nice pat on the back, but it's time to go. And we've been learning. It's funny. I didn't quite forget everything that you learned while you were in the hospital because we were there a couple extra days, but all my buddies that had children prior to us, they're like, I left the hospital feeling like an absolute pro. Like, I got this. I can change a diaper. I know the schedule. I can do all this. And then they got in the car and their mind was just wiped. Wait a minute. I have no clue I just have to take care of this now. There's no help. This is all me. I didn't have as much of that, but it kind of feels like if we were only there 2 days, I could definitely see. I would have panicked. I probably would have cried.
I think I
Has
would have
there
panicked anyway. Go ahead, Dustin.
yeah. Has there been anything that's surprised you? I know it's only been like a week, but has there been anything that surprised you? Or anything that you were like, I was really not prepared for this aspect of
For
fatherhood?
me, as the dad, no. Um, just I knew it was gonna be hard. I knew it was no sleep. It is hard. I think I go back to watching my wife do it. I think is the most surprising. It's they just kick it into another gear, and it's I don't have that gear. It's just really a really cool thing to watch and get to see firsthand. It's a blessing, really.
I might
There was
sound really
always
stupid when I ask this question because
Bring it on.
maybe this is public information that you all have shared on Facebook or whatever. But what's your daughter's name?
Margaret Marie Page. We're calling her
Margaret
Maggie.
Marie Page. Okay.
I could see a world where we drop the Maggie and just call her Margaret. We thought we were going to call her Maggie the whole time, but I've started calling her Margaret. Laura calls her Margaret. My dad calls her Margaret. And obviously she doesn't respond yet, but it's just funny you have this plan and then throw it out the window.
One thing that's funny too that I've seen. So there's a relative of my wife's who also recently just had a baby, and we were over at their place the other day, and just seeing different people call out that baby's name, I just sit there and laugh. And I know they're probably it's all just tongue in cheek, but I sit there and laugh. I'm like, that baby cannot process anything.
It's got no idea what's going on. All it does is
Exactly.
eat, sleep, and poop. That's it. It's got the
Same.
trifecta going on, and she does not have a problem with the third thing. She lets him fly.
So I don't even know where to go from here. Obviously, you're going to be checking out from this podcast pretty early.
Yeah.
You got to do some feeding. It will be feeding time here before long.
Yeah, and I gotta help in some way. Obviously, I'm not
Yeah.
doing the feeding, but you just feel like you got to be there just in case
Yeah.
you need some water. I'll say this as surprising, how thirsty and hungry Laura is. Mostly thirsty.
Oh,
You got to
sure.
be there. I've become
Sure.
an athletic trainer. Like in my college days, just when you come off the field, you know how the trainers have the water bottle just ready to go for the guy that just came off
Yep.
the field? That's me.
Yep.
I got the ice water on deck.
Let me ask you about I feel like people always talk about the moment that they see their baby for the very first time when they first officially become a mom or a dad. What was that like for you? Is it as world changing, or did it just kind of feel like the next thing and it was so overwhelming? And what was that like for you?
So when I first saw her, I watched the whole thing. So saw from start to finish, all the pushing, saw the whole thing. I was super excited, and then when it finally happened, overwhelming. My jaw dropped, hands on head, like, oh this, I don't know what to do. I have to take care of this thing now. It just is, but that goes away pretty quick. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious, really. I was more excited that she was here. I was excited that Laura was going to start feeling better. And it's I think the anxiety comes, like, you just want to do the best you can. You want to, I think of myself as I like to have fun. I'm semi smart, but I've done a lot of dumb things, and you want to make sure that you remember all the dumb things you did so you can make sure you pass it on to her and say, hey, this dumb stuff, don't do any of it. And you can't prevent everything, but that's where I would say most of the anxiety comes is the days are long, but she's already been here over a week, and it feels like yesterday that we were at the hospital. So the time just accelerates, and you just want to make sure that you're doing the best job that you can. And I think that's where you change your perspective a little bit, because before, like, whatever, you do whatever kind of you want during the day, and now you've got somebody that's going to be watching you and watching my wife and seeing how her and I interact and seeing how I interact with other people. And you just want to make sure that you're setting the right example. That's that's where most of my anxiety comes, is just making sure that I'm always the best I can be. So that's what she sees. Cause I think, at least the way that I was, my parents told me a bunch of stuff and I remembered a lot of it, but you take the most from what you saw. And I just want to make sure that she's seeing the right stuff.
It's so philosophical.
Yeah.
There's
I
just
know.
nothing I can say that's going to be even remotely smart or wise after what you just said.
And I
Yeah.
don't think either you or I, Dustin, are here to sound smart. I'm more so just curious because
I'm not smart either, but it's so you start thinking this way. You do. You can't even help it. You have to grow up fast.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about on this show in general, like about our childhoods and things we enjoyed and how sometimes it's tough to let things go like that. And I think that reaches another level. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not a father. You now have crossed into that part of your life. But I feel like it becomes a lot more evident, or I don't know if evident or easier is the right way to say it, but it probably just becomes a lot more clear of how that kind of stuff is phased out from your life. Maybe not completely, but it just takes more of a backseat.
Yeah. I want to add, like, so another part of the anxiety, you don't want to lose who you are either. Because there's a lot of people that, not a lot, but I've got a couple buddies that were themselves, they were fun, and they had a kid, and they just kind of, they lose themselves for a little bit. You change, your identity changes inevitably, but it's good to maintain a little bit of that personality, like yourself. I don't even know what the word is that I'm looking for, but um, individualism. You want to make sure that, like, I'm always going to be somebody that likes to say stupid stuff, make dumb jokes,
Yeah.
play video games, play golf. And I want to make sure that I don't lose that, because that's another thing that I think is important to teach, is always be confident in who you are. I'm not just going to, this is me, for better or for worse. This is me. And you just want to make sure that you keep some of that too.
Well, I'm super happy for you guys. You and
Thank you.
Laura, congrats to both of you on everything that's happened over the last week, because I mean, this is something that I feel like most people look forward to in their lives. I mean, I know not everybody wants to have kids, but obviously it's something I've talked about before, hopefully getting to experience eventually at some point. So
Yeah.
so congrats to both of you guys.
It's pretty cool that we started this podcast about like just generally nothing, just kind of about life. And then you get to go through this life journey in front of our audience of thousands of people who probably listen.
Millions,
Or
probably.
if maybe not that, then at least the three of us. I think that's pretty cool. So I
Yeah,
echo what John said.
it
We're
comes
super
back-
happy for you, and it's awesome.
Thank you. It comes back to why we started this. If no one ever listens, we talked about this before, it'll be really fun in 5 years, 10 years to go back to episode 30 and compare it to episode 60 and compare it to episode 200. Just the different ways that you talk about things. And I think your personality changes. I mean, we only do it once a week. So 52 episodes is an entire year. And I think about where I was 3 years ago. My wife's going to be mad that I was saying this, but a little over 3 years ago, we were in the Volksgarten in Vienna, Austria at 5 a.m. and she was standing on a table at an EDM concert. And now here we are. It's just, in 3.5 years ago, really wasn't that long.
Yeah, I mean, 3.5, a lot can happen, especially, I feel like maybe it's because of COVID, but time feels like it has exponentially sped up because of everything that went down in 2020. And just that year alone feels like a blur. And then slowly coming out of everything in the year after that. And then really, I don't feel like things truly became normal again until 2022, and that's 2 full trips around the sun, right? Or maybe not around the sun. Is a trip around the sun an entire year, or is it a day, right? I feel like I'm completely
This is a miss. We're going to let you figure this one out on your own.
Trip around the sun for the whole globe, that's a year, because a rotation of the earth is a day.
There we go.
So it sounds like I was on the right track.
We wanted to let you talk that one out. You knew that one.
Yeah, you did.
You just had to talk it out loud.
I just confused myself.
Yes.
I appreciate you letting the opportunity take hold.
Yes, of course.
I
Of
would have.
course.
Kudos to you for sticking with it. I would have changed subjects very quickly. You're like, I know what I'm talking about. Let's talk about something else.
I know it. Just trust me. Moving on.
Just believe me that I know what I'm talking about on this one.
How do we move on from here? Because here, like, I don't want to get into like a bunch of nonsense. Actually, I do want to talk about one thing with all three of us on here that I've experienced. And I don't even think experience is the right word here. I learned something that might have been commonplace, or at least, or maybe a common term, just 2 days ago. Have you guys ever heard of cricket feet? What it means to have cricket feet?
No.
No. Okay. Well, at least I'm not the only person who is rim shot out of touch on this subject. I should get a rim shot for whenever we have things that pertain to something like that. But
Well, you're in charge of the audio on this
What's
I
a
podcast.
know
rim
that's what I'm
shot?
saying. It's a miss on me. A rim shot. It's like the little whenever you
But
say
I'm
something
done.
funny, it's the that
Oh,
stuff.
okay. That's
Yeah,
not,
that's a rim shot.
There's something else.
How do I know exactly what you were thinking of, Mitchell?
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. let's cut that part. What are we
So
talking
two
about?
things right there. Okay. So rim shot's also something that's not good. That's inappropriate, apparently, right?
It's close. It's not a rim shot, but
Yeah,
it's
it's something
also
else,
2
yes.
syllables. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that because I have no clue what you're even referring to.
That's
So,
good. Young, naive. I love
That's
it.
right,
Stay that way
naive.
forever, John.
That was the title of last week's episode too. Is being naive. I'm just
Stay that
full
way
of
forever.
things. I don't know. I think and I know I'm getting off track, but I don't care. I think there is a point where being naive in a certain age, at least about certain things, is just you need to figure it out, or else you're gonna get clowned by somebody in a professional environment. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows?
I'm not gonna go where I was gonna
If
go.
if you don't use rim shot correctly, you will get clowned. So you may want to figure that one out.
Yeah. Well, or if you use what I was thinking, if you have one of those in the setting that you would have that and you use it incorrectly, it could be awkward for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I'll get back to my original point.
Yeah, please.
Cricket feet. So I was at my brother's house the other day. It was his 24th birthday. Happy belated birthday to him, I guess, even though I told him in person. And one other thing, when this episode releases, it will be my wife's birthday. So happy birthday to my wife.
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
That's awesome. How old is she? 18?
She'll be
21?
26. We'll both be 26 this year. My birthday's in August and hers is Wednesday.
What are you supposed to say? Because I promise I won't get too far off topic, but
it's okay. Off topic is
when we were in
encouraged.
elementary school, anytime it was a teacher's birthday that was clearly not 29, they would say happy 29th birthday to Mr. or Miss whoever, to not say their actual age. When someone's only 26, is it okay to ask how old are you going to be, or
I think that's fair. Well, here's the thing. All of my wife's students, because she is a 5th grade teacher, they all think she's like 40 years old. I think that's just normal for elementary school kids to assume every teacher's in their 40s.
Yes, you're the oldest person they've ever seen if you're their teacher. That's just the way that 5th graders think. But for whatever reason, I can very specifically remember on the morning announcements, whenever it was our principal's birthday, Mrs. Barrett, they would say, happy 29th birthday to Mrs. Barrett. And I did that for 5 years. And by the time I was in 5th grade, I'm like, how is she still 29?
This is crazy.
This is 5 years in a row. How is she doing this? A couple years later, I finally understood. Yeah, but like, this is the Neverland.
So cricket feet. So I was at my brother's house for his birthday. We were watching the UFC fights the other night. I'm not a big UFC fight guy. And those things are always on super late. And it's kind of fun when you're around a bunch of people who are a little intoxicated and they're super into the fights. Maybe they put some money on it, that kind of thing. Well, I start, and I do this. I've done this unconsciously, probably a lot. And maybe both of you guys have too. Unconsciously, I'd be
knocked out on the floor.
Subconsciously, while I'm not thinking and still awake. But late at night, I'm laying on this couch / chair, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of like a hybrid. And I'm rubbing my feet together, also kind of like rubbing them up against like the lazy boy, like the part that kicks up. And my stepsister, who was sitting in the chair next to me, took a video of me doing that and talking with somebody, whoever was standing next to me. And apparently doing that is something called cricket feet. And it's a sign that your body is preparing for rest or to fall asleep.
I mean, that is the most preposterous thing I've ever heard. I have never that is what crickets do.
Yes.
But
Hence
the
the
image I
chirping.
have of you doing that is one that I want never to come back into my head ever. What were you? What?
You can't. I guarantee you, both of you've done this because this is apparent. Whenever I was told the term, I didn't think it was a real thing. I thought it was something that my stepsister
I'm
made up.
picturing you sitting with like your feet, your knees out, like rubbing the bottom of your feet together in
Yeah.
the air.
So it.
Do you
The
understand what I'm
version,
saying?
I know what you're talking about. I think that's a variation of it. What I was doing, I wish I could show you a visual. So again, I'm sitting in a leather lazy boy chair, and it was kicked out, right? And my
Yep.
legs, like, I'm a pretty short dude, by the way. I'm like 5'7", 5'8". My legs barely go off the edge of this lazy boy seat. And
Okay.
so while I'm watching the fights, we're all sitting there hanging out, talking, whatever. I'm sitting there, apparently, again, on video of me talking to somebody. And while I'm talking, I'm moving my legs back and forth with my feet planted on the lazy boy kickout. Does that make sense? You
Yes.
got me so far?
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
rubbing them up and down, not like up in terms of, it's more like forward and backward. That's the correct term. Moving them forward and backward on the chair, and got called out that I was cricketing or had cricket feet.
That I understand. Okay. I've done that before for sure. I've never heard of it called that. And also, why were they looking? That would be my first
Well, I mean, it's
question.
probably
Like,
maybe it was something that was
mind
just
your business.
super, out
Why were
there.
they looking at your feet?
I mean, they weren't
That's
not just
weird.
looking at them; they were videoing them.
That's
Have you
weird. I think the problem goes on them. Like, all right, weirdo.
What immediately popped into my head, have you guys seen the video? I don't know whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, or it's probably on everything at this point, but it's like a group of, it looks what are look appear to be college age friends just hanging out watching a movie, and there's like a girl, her boyfriend, and then a random dude on the far end, and the girlfriend's feet are kicked over the boyfriend's lap, and it's kind of like in the eyesight of the friend, and the friend takes a picture of her feet like he has the flash on, and it just creates this really awkward moment.
Is it her bare
Because-
feet?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen this. It's
Yeah,
gross.
Foot pics.
And everybody in the video just has like this like gaping jaw reaction to like, man, what are you doing?
Have you ever been caught in that? I've been caught in that a whole bunch when I'm trying to take a sneaky pic of like something weird that's going on, and this is going to sound easy with your wandering minds before I say this. All right. You're like just in a darker place and you're trying to take a picture of something and the flash is on and you don't know it. That's the most awkward like 5 seconds that a man can experience, that a human can experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to this guy. He was trying
Yeah.
to probably send a picture like, this is the grossest thing I've ever seen. And he was going to send it to all his buddies. And then he gets just caught in the absolute act. It's brutal. It's brutal. I would never do it. John, you probably do that though.
Accidentally flash photo?
No, put your bare feet on in someone else's face like that.
With
I probably have. I don't like recall
So
specific
nasty.
moments, but yeah, that's a very you know me well enough to that's probably something I would do.
it was
Rub
probably
them
after a
together.
visit to the hot tub.
Yeah, dude.
You want to smell this chlorinated foot?
Ew.
I need to get in a. Actually, I haven't mentioned that my in-laws have a swim spa now.
It's
What is that? What's the
900
swim
degrees
spa?
outside.
No, let me back up then. Well, first, I guess
Okay.
I got to answer 2 questions. So, a swim spa it's kind of like a pool hot tub hybrid,
Ah.
and it's not like the size of a pool, but it's a larger than a hot tub than a typical hot tub, but not quite as big as a pool. And like if like the pool aspect of it, for example, you can get in the middle and have part of the pressure come out on you. You can actually like swim and do a workout, that kind of a thing. And then, it has typical like hot tub jets and that type of stuff.
But it's
And you can
104
adjust the
degrees.
temperature, Dustin. You mentioned it being 900 degrees outside. You
Oh,
can make it
that's nice.
feel more like a pool
I like
as
that.
opposed to a really hot tub.
I like that. It's best of both worlds. The
So
hybrid.
is this
I
like
like
a?
that.
Is this also like a treadmill? Like if you're swimming, I assume you can't go anywhere. So it's
Yeah,
just
so
the
it's
pressure
not
can
there's
go
not
high enough
like
to
a
where you're swimming
there's
in
not a
place.
movable like platform, but it's kind of like a water treadmill. Like the
That's what I'm
pressure
saying.
on one end of the swim spa is powerful enough to where you could legitimately just swim in place and get a workout
Yes.
from it.
Yes. These are
I think I've
sweet.
seen these. Yeah.
You can do like a full. You don't have to worry about the turns that you would in a lap pool. You can just swim a mile in place, right? Is that
I
what I'm
mean,
thinking?
I can't do that, but if
But
you
I
want
mean,
to
you
try
could.
it,
Like, you can
yeah.
just swim in the same
Theoretically.
spot, like whatever the freestyle swimming, and the jets are strong enough that keep you in place. Like, you're not going to ever
Yeah.
touch the end. Yes, that's cool to me.
Did you all have something like I know a lot of athletic facilities, and I know you probably got to get going. So if you can't really answer this, that's fine. But
This is my last thing.
when you were at Indiana or even in the NFL, I guess, did you all have those types of like I don't know if they use them just for like body cooling situations or if it was similar to what I was talking about with the swim spa.
So we had a couple different pools. We had a big hot tub that was more just a recovery, muscle relaxing tub. Then we had the cold tub that was always whatever cold tub, like 50 degrees or whatever. And then we also had the underwater treadmill that was strictly like we weren't allowed to just go on that. That was just the athletic trainers. And typically you go in that if you're coming back from like an ankle injury and you couldn't have full weight, it allowed you to get moving. A lot of times they use it when they like guys coming back from ACLs. When you can only put 50% weight on it, you could start to get a normal gait and then you could increase to a jog because the water kept some of your weight. So you could get your gait back and it didn't apply the force onto your knees or your ankle or whatever was hurting. And it just allowed your muscles to start moving in the right direction and it helped with healing, I guess. I had to do it a couple times for my ankles when I'd get rolled up on. It was actually pretty sweet. It was broken a lot, but when it wasn't, it was pretty sweet. You could see how like water and moving metal mechanisms aren't the best. They don't jive the best. And you
Sure.
have a big, heavy dudes running on this thing. It didn't always work the way it was supposed to, but it was really cool when it was up and running. We also had one of those anti-gravity treadmills. Have you
Oh,
seen
yeah?
these? Where you like put this around, you step in like a girdle and it zips into a bubble and you could control how much essentially gravity was on your body. So you could put like 5% of your weight into this little machine and you could run on the treadmill, but it was only 5% of the pressure of your body weight on the treadmill. And you could just increase, gradually grow 5, 10, 20, 30, and it was part of your recovery. And that way you could get, it felt like you were still running. Like it was
Does it look like this? Is this
the
accurate?
Alter G. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It didn't look,
Wow.
ours was black. Ours was, yeah, more like these guys, this one right here. But yeah, so you step in this little girdle, it controls how much gravity is applied to your body, and you could just gradually build up. It was similar to the underwater treadmill, but there wasn't the resistance that you got because you could increase the resistance too in the underwater treadmill. This was just a straight like treadmill run that you would do, but just with less weight.
That's pretty cool looking. Well,
Yeah.
we'll let you go there,
All right.
Papa Mitch.
I can
And,
I can hear a baby crying right now, so that's perfect.
oh, it's
timing.
time. It's that
That's
time. Get your game face on.
I'm being called. I'm sure I got to change a dirty diaper. So, boys, next week I should be more back to normal. I'm hoping to be on for a
We'll
full
see.
show.
We're on your time with this because obviously,
Yeah.
like you're going through something that and not. I say going through like it's a bad thing. Like you're experiencing something that neither of us have.
It's a
ever
battle right
experienced.
now. You feel like you're at war a little bit, and we're battling. But I think every day we'll have some setbacks, but every day gets a little bit easier. It's not a linear get better, but every day is 1% better, and hopefully by next week we'll get to a place where I can just be in here and Laura can take care of everything and I can come in at the end.
Well,
but for
thanks
now,
for popping on.
that's what I got. Boys, I will see you next week.
See you
Yes,
later.
Sir.
See you guys.
Congratulations again.
See you.
All right, Dustin. Well, I want to hear your thoughts. Are you I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but like is being a father something that you've ever thought about doing? Like, do you think that's in your game plan down the road?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not really, how do I say this? I'm not much of a kid person unless it's my kids.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like there's a lot of people who may fit into that
mhm.
category.
But I've also never had to spend a lot of time around small children, so, and that's not anything against anybody. It's just like, to me it's very awkward. So, but I'm
Yeah,
also
I
awkward
could say
around people my age.
I feel kind of, I mean, I've gotten a lot better over the years because my wife is like she loves babies. So we've been around so many babies
Mhm.
when it comes to like our friends and that kind of stuff. So back before we had friends who had children, it was a lot more awkward for me to be
Yeah.
around infants and just babies in general because I didn't know how to, I guess, just be, because I didn't want to break the kid. Sometimes they would
Yep.
crawl
Yep.
all over me and I'm just like letting them do it and I'm not really reacting in any other way. Obviously, I've gotten a whole lot better at it over the last 7, 8 years, however long it's been. But it's definitely weird if you're not used to being around that kind of thing. So
It yeah, it is. I don't I don't know. Like it sounds like I get along with my friends who have children. Like that's not a problem. But it's just like kind of the random children that are just out in general nature and
yeah,
doing things that it's like awkward. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of people, well, and I say feel like, but this is probably accepted as normal, but the toddler phase scares a lot of people because at that point, up until that point, you haven't experienced any talking, and for one, they can't talk back to you. The only expression you've ever gotten from them is like noises and a few words here and there, and they can't really make decisions on their own, and they really can't make decisions on their own anyway. I mean, they can try, but that's the age where they kind of start to just experiment with life, I guess. And I'm sure that'll be you know an interesting phase when Mitchell inevitably gets to that point. So
Oh,
take a
for
drink of
sure.
water real quick. Ah, man, what else is new, Dustin? How's St. Louis treating you this week?
It's good. It's good. I think it was 2 weeks ago. No, it was maybe a little over a week ago. I finished a decathlon. That was
A
exciting. That was
decathlon.
new. Yeah, it was kind of like a makeshift. It wasn't like a traditional decathlon, but it was something that I did. So I was proud of myself for doing that. We went to Busch Stadium for the first time. That was awesome. Abby got us front row seats to the Braves Cardinals game. We got our own
Okay.
special little, not just for us two, but for anybody in the what do they call it? Dugout seats. Got their special little concession stand, so that was cool. She got a baseball.
So
I didn't get
is Abby, is
anything.
she a Cardinals fan?
No, so it was I've wanted to go to because the Braves were coming to town and I'm a Braves fan.
I knew you were a Braves
And
fan. Yeah.
so she got tickets. Um, but one a former Nebraska pitcher actually was called up earlier this season. He didn't pitch that night, but he was at the game too. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us.
Okay. Yeah, Busch Stadium. I've never been. I think said the only professional major league ballpark that I've ever been inside is Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, and that wasn't even for a Reds game. That was for, believe it or not, a Jason Aldean concert back when I
Wow,
was,
you went
I
to a Jason Aldean concert.
yeah, back
Wow, this
in
is an
high
upset.
school. So little known fact about me, I guess, unless you're a family member of mine or somebody who's known me for more than the last 5 to 10 years. I used to like what's kind of known now as bro country. I don't think back then
Sure.
it was subgenre as bro country. I think that term came about years a little bit down the road. Um, but I saw I've seen shows for Jason Aldean. I've seen Luke Bryan. I've seen Keith Urban. Uh, Probably a few others that I'm not recalling at the moment. Those were ones that I remember enjoying. I don't listen to a lot of that music anymore. Not because it's bad, but I think, people's tastes change over time. And so, yeah, I've been to Jason Aldean at Great American Ballpark. It was the lineup that night was Jason Aldean, Miranda Lambert, somebody else that was a third, and then I know the fourth act, the opener was Florida Georgia Line.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I think Bush is the fourth or fifth I've been to. I've been to Wrigley Field. I've been to they keep changing the name of the White Sox stadium. It used to be U.S. Cellular Field when I went there. And then Truist Park, and then Busch Stadium. I think Busch is probably the nicest. Truist is second. But it's funny that you bring up, because now I got two things I can talk to you about. Number one is
Okay.
we are actually going to Great American Ballpark this month, later in July, for a Foo Fighters concert.
Okay.
So we're
Ooh, I
looking forward
believe
to that.
a young band that I'm a big fan of is opening up for Foo Fighters on this tour. Mammoth WVH, which is Wolfgang Van Halen, Eddie Van
Okay.
Halen's son. I could be wrong. I think he's opening on that tour.
Could be.
But have fun, because Foo Fighters, I've
Yeah.
never seen them. I've got family members who enjoy Foo Fighters. I enjoy some of their songs. I don't know a ton compared to some other bands, but I'm sure that'll be a fun show.
Well, it's one of those that I've wanted to see for a long time, and I've just kind of come to terms with the fact that you're not going to see them for cheap.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to splurge as part of a Christmas gift this year. The other thing, speaking of music, because we did on Sunday morning, I think it was. Did you watch the Nickelback documentary?
Not yet. It's
Okay.
something. So it takes me. I have to set aside time to watch anything like that I'm not already committed to. When I say committed to, I mean like shows I'm not already watching. So probably I'll be able to give a full, not report, but I'll be able to share my thoughts hopefully by next episode on the Nickelback documentary.
Okay.
So you've watched
Okay.
it though.
Yeah, I've watched
Give me a
it.
teaser. Give me. I'm sure there's not like spoilers necessarily, but give me. What did you think? I guess.
I I think it was presented well. There wasn't a lot of stuff that you're gonna watch and say, "Oh, I didn't know that." I don't think
Okay.
there's any secrets in it. And then I thought that I think it could have been an hour long. I think it's about an hour and a half, somewhere in there.
A lot
I
of
think it
fluff.
could have been about an hour. I think the last half an hour seemed to be just kind of dragging on a little bit. There was some stuff in there that was unique, but I think they could have cut it down. So like it was good. It was an easy kind of watch, but I don't think you walked away being like mind blown by anything, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously Nickelback has gone from. I mean, I feel like they've always been a big band. Like there's never been an era
Yeah.
of theirs where they were like truly hated. Like they've always been a meme, at least for like I guess since they really broke big with All the Right Reasons in the mid 2000s. That's kind of when that was the era where every single one of their songs and every single one of their hits was on the radio, and you couldn't really escape
Mhm.
Nickelback on any channel for that matter, whether it be rock radio or top 40 radio. They were literally everywhere, which that's kind of what drew in a lot of the joking. Like I guess like they were sellouts, that kind of thing. Again, I'll probably learn more about the specifics of it when I watch it, but that's kind of how their career has gone. And again, they've never not been popular, quote unquote popular. They've just they've had their ups and downs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really had in terms of now we always people that we know, mutual friends and such, give you a hard time because you're a big Nickelback fan. But I've never hated them. It's not like they're my favorite band, but I think they produce good music, solid music. It's not something I usually seek out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I don't they were just they became popular to hate, and then but I think in a way, and I think they kind of hint at this at the so here's your teaser. They kind of hint at this as like because so many people were like it was cool to hate them. and make fun of them. There's like this resurgence of people who were like, we love Nickelback and it's cool to love Nickelback again. And so they're almost like benefiting from that resurgence of like repopularity getting out of it. Like it's a weird kind of circle. Like you said, if it's a roller coaster, they went up, they
Yeah.
were at the height of popularity. They weren't really down. They weren't down. It was just kind of down in terms of like how they were perceived. But then
Yeah.
they go back up. But I mean,
And Creed's gone through the same thing. Like they're also now doing their reunion tour, which I believe is actually going to start up here in a couple of weeks. Um, I feel like a lot of bands from that era, not even just Nickelback, but anyone who is in that kind of Nickelback circle, like anyone that sounded similar, kind of also
yep.
got put into that category, like Theory of a Dead Man or Puddle of Mud, that kind of stuff. They all kind of fit that same sound. And I guess it was just known as the Nickelback sound, whatever that means. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel like, and I won't dig any further deep into this other than what I'm about to mention because I know you're not as big of a music guy as me, but new metal, metal, kind of went through the same thing and that was like Limp Bizkit, Korn, and Papa Roach, like those style of bands, like the rap rock. That kind of got clowned a little bit as well. Not to the same level as the Nickelback rock, maybe, but go
no,
ahead.
I agree. But I think that stuff was like looking back at it, because we also watched, I saw this before, but Abby hadn't. So we watched it again, was the Woodstock, the train wreck.
Oh, I love
Woodstock
that
99
documentary.
That's a good documentary. But it's like when you listen to Limp Bizkit, like their music isn't particularly good. It was just kind
really
of
like there's no message. It's really its
not
sole
good.
purpose is just it's really just party music is what it is.
Yeah. It's basically just, I mean, Bizkit will not settle down.
We love Bizkit.
But it's basically just like one of the bands, like when it became popular to have that parental advisory sticker, like they took advantage of that type of, and it didn't almost matter what they were singing or how they sounded. It was just the fact that they were being, I guess obscene would be the right word. And they were capitalizing on that because that was a big thing back then. Think about Kid Rock, Korn.
Well, that's weird.
You could probably throw other ones in there.
My earliest childhood memories of music, my dad was a big rock and roll guy, and he still is. But he was listening to all those new metal bands, Limp Bizkit, Korn, all the stuff I just mentioned. And so I grew up in the basement of our house in Indiana. He used to have this big tower of CDs. And I can't remember. I guess he must have had a stereo somewhere. I don't remember exactly what the layout was, but he would turn that speaker up as loud as he as loud as it could go, stick in, one of those bands I just mentioned. I also remember Eminem being a part of that list too, interestingly enough. But
sure.
even though that was mainly just rap, it still kind of fit that vibe of just kind of anger and angst and all that kind of stuff. But I remember just dancing around being a 3 or 4 year old listening to that stuff, not knowing any better. I don't remember if there were clean versions. They just probably weren't. Yeah, just not even just headbanging. I mean, just jumping around, whatever 4-year-olds do, jumping off the lazy boy, the couch, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's weird that being, I mean, it obviously influenced me in some way, shape, or form in terms of my taste, because I still enjoy that style now. No matter how vulgar it may be at times, it's just kind of fun to listen to and reminisce on. But yeah, both those eras of rock and roll in the late 90s into the mid 2000s, they had their bad raps, and then they've seen resurgences over the past. Like Korn, they're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year, which is kind of weird to think about.
That is weird to think about. I can't, how intense they are too. It seems like they should not be able to be on stage, but they're still doing it apparently.
And they're in their like 50s now. In terms of like that music when it came out was the teenager music. Like that's and not that they were teenagers. I think they were in their maybe late teens, early 20s, but they were. I mean, if you watch the Woodstock documentary, like Dustin mentioned, whenever it was their moment, the late night of the first day, kind of before everything went sideways at that Woodstock festival, the sea of people jumping up and down when Korn took the stage is something I don't think could ever be recreated by any music act anymore, because I mean, again, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but because of the irregularity with that festival and everything that went wrong with it, the lack of organization, you can't find what happened when they took the stage on any level ever again. I don't think
Well, you can.
you can.
Here's why. Though this is going to
Go
be
ahead.
a terrible comparison, but it actually is, because when I see that, that's what it's on a much smaller scale, because there was like 250, 300,000 people.
Yeah,
at
and I think
Woodstock.
that's what I mean, like the amount of
Yeah.
people in that type of environment.
But I don't know what the capacity is at the stadium. But when they do jump around at Camp Randall, that's the image that it is. That is what that is.
That's true. I think
And
they
when you
hold
look
about
around,
80,000 at Camp Randall.
probably, I don't know that, I don't have it in front of me, and it's not that important, because you're talking about probably 3 to 4 times the size at the Woodstock. But nonetheless, that's what, if you go to a Wisconsin home game, that's in the stadium's full. That's what that image is. It's
And
pretty
again,
cool.
that is a much more controlled. I mean, controlled to an extent. Obviously,
good point.
You're in a stadium, you're in seats. Whereas the Woodstock Festival, that was pure, unadulterated chaos.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Chaos.
So yeah, two documentary recommendations. Again, I haven't seen one of them, but I'm gonna watch it before. Hopefully before we record the next episode. The is it Hate to Love is the Nickelback documentary, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, hate to hate, or hate to love.
Something like that. Hate to love, love to hate, whatever. And then it's just like the Nickelback story, something like that on Netflix. And then I think Trainwreck is what the Woodstock documentary
that's what it is.
It's
called. Trainwreck.
I've rewatched. So I've talked about Louder Than Life, and we'll wrap up this episode here shortly. Just kind of put a bow on what we were talking about, but I've mentioned how Louder Than Life I go to that every year. It's usually late September. I watch the Woodstock documentary every year before I go to Louder Than Life. And just to be clear, it is, like I mentioned, you can't recreate what happened at Woodstock 99. And I wouldn't want that to be recreated, because that was a dangerous festival in all shapes and sizes. But it still gives you that same kind of carefree vibe. And again, well, hopefully I'll have more stories come later this September about what that's like again. But definitely on a much different level than what happened in New York on that airstrip.
What are your 4th of July plans? Do you have anything exciting?
4th of July plans.
Are you a big 4th of July person?
This will be a good way to end the show.
I thought
I used to be a big 4th of July guy. I mean, not as an adult, but as a kid, I enjoyed it a lot more than I do as an adult. I'm not really a big fan of fireworks being blasted all the time. Like right in my neighborhood in the past couple of days, it's not even like today's July 1st and we're recording this. Just random people shooting off fireworks at 10:30, not for long periods of time. Like that's typically reserved just for July 4th. But I'm not a fan of people blasting them out of nowhere. And it really that stemmed from, since we've had we've had our dog for I guess about 3 years now, right around this time of year. She used to not care, but the older she's gotten, and again, she's not old yet, but she's more aware than when she was just a puppy. She doesn't like the fireworks. And because she doesn't like it, it just pisses me off, because it's and I know that there's also other families, not even just with dogs, but with children who it bothers them and that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm not as big of a 4th of July fan. But I get it. If you have kids and you want to have a good time, celebrate America, that kind of stuff, that doesn't bother me.
What if we don't have kids, John? Are we not allowed to celebrate?
You're allowed to. That's the thing where, like, I feel like for me, if I were to ever like do something, it would be because I had kids. That's probably the next time I would actually buy fireworks, that kind of thing.
So the positive was when I got Biscuit, it was in Orlando, and where I lived at the time was within like 6 miles of Disney World's Magic Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
And so from my apartment, you could hear the fireworks every night, and they're not quiet. They're loud, because they also shoot them off. They're like not inside the park. It's from a spot that was even closer to the apartment. So he's gotten pretty accustomed to that noise, because it was legit, like Disney's open every day. So it was 7 nights a week, 365 days a year, unless it rained. And then sometimes if there was lightning, they didn't have the fireworks. But by and large, it was every night. So he's kind of used to that noise, doesn't really bother him much. But man, Big Fourth, I love eating as much as I can. I love indulging in a few adult beverages. I love fireworks. A big firework guy. So I am a big fan of the 4th of July.
So if you being a big firework guy, you eventually need to work your way down to Louisville for Thunder over Louisville, which
I've
is
heard
2
this.
weeks. I think I've talked to you about this, honestly. Maybe not on the show, but just in passing. But in the 2 weeks leading up to the Derby every year, there's the Kentucky Derby Festival, and Thunder over Louisville is the kickoff for that. Two Saturdays before the Kentucky Derby, and it's the largest firework show in the United States. If you've seen it a million times like me and everybody else who's lived around here, it loses its luster a little bit. But if you've never seen it, it's definitely something to check out at least once.
I think I will. I've heard this multiple times. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. I think that would be cool. I even like just going to like Friday baseball games, and because usually they'll have a fireworks show after a baseball game, and that's fun too.
So yeah, happy 4th of July, Independence Day, whatever phrase you like to use for this time of year. Any closing thoughts before we put a bow on this, Dustin Shooty?
I just, I don't know if Mitchell and Laura are going to listen to this, but we're super happy for them. It's exciting and it's kind of cool. Like I said, we're not there obviously because we all three live in different states, pretty much the same part of the country, but just different areas.
We're in a triangle.
But it's kind of cool to like virtually go through this journey with them and just get updates and see how everybody's doing. So we're super happy for them, and it's going to be fun to see how life progresses for young Margaret.
And that's true. And we've followed this journey since Mitchell told us that his wife was pregnant. I can't remember when that would have been. I guess that would have been 9 months ago. We're coming up on a year of Out of Touch.
We
I know
are.
Mitchell mentioned 52 episodes. We did take 2 weeks of a break. So technically episode 50, I think, will mark our 1 year of doing this. So, shout out to Out of Touch for surviving and for us for doing this as long as we have already. So again, happy 4th of July, everybody. Thanks for checking out another episode. If you stuck with us, we appreciate you. And we will talk to you again next week.